Confident, confident, confident. I can be confident, 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 confident. I can be confident at work.
Hello and welcome to the Confident at Work podcast. I'm your host and your confidence coach, Anna Manning. Welcome to episode 3 in our mini series about how to feel more confident public speaking. So, I've had a nightmare basically. I recorded this once for you, thought I'd nailed it. Audio was terrible. I am by no means a perfectionist, but I was like, oh, this just won't do. They need a good audio. So, here you are, round 2. Let's see if this one's going to be even better than the first one. So, this is the third in our mini series about how to feel more confident public speaking. And if you haven't listened to episodes 1 and 2, I'm going to recommend that you go and listen to them because they are going to lay the foundations and help you spot the patterns. They're going to give you all the groundwork that you need for today. And we're doing this series because we know that public speaking can be anywhere from nerve-wracking to making you feel like you're actually going to collapse. So, whether you're presenting internally or you're standing up on a stage or you're joining a panel, sometimes these are tricky aspects of our job. And mostly they're tricky aspects because of how they make us feel. I know from working with people that whoever you are and however bad you find this, you can feel more confident public speaking. I work with clients on this all the time. And now I'm bringing it to the podcast and working with you. So today we're going to focus on change. In episode 1, we focused on the foundations that you need to put in place. In episode 2, we focused on spotting those patterns, those triggers, and really understanding them. And this episode 3, we're going to focus on the actual change work that you need to do to feel more confident public speaking. And we're going to focus on the 3 areas of change work today. The first is around low confidence cycle habits. The second is around updating subconscious learnings, or sometimes called implicit beliefs. And third is around updating your physical responses. But first, we're going to changing low confidence cycle habits. And if you're a frequent listener to the podcast, you'll be like, Anna, are you seriously banging on about these again? And my answer to that question is yes, I am seriously banging on about these again because they are things that you need to attend to. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to the show notes. Take the confidence assessment and you will get a report from me telling you which low confidence cycle habits you have and which ones you need to think about. But to give you a summary, and those habits that you might have noticed in episodes 1 and 2, habits like negative self talk, doubting yourself excessively, expecting perfection from yourself when you're a human and it's probably not really even possible, and focusing only on what went wrong and not really noticing the full picture. So I want you to imagine that your public speaking confidence is like a tiny shoot coming through the soil. And if every time you criticize yourself or obsess over mistakes, it's like you stamping on that little shoot or pouring poison all over it. Not ideal, right? So your confidence is barely through the ground, and already those habits that you might have of focusing on what went wrong and shit talking yourself constantly are going to destroy that fledgling public speaking confidence. So we do not want that. We want you to have the best environment possible for that shoot, for that confidence to be able to grow. So if you have low confidence cycle habits, you may need to change them in order to feel more confident public speaking. And you do the same thing for each one. It's not complicated. It can be hard, but it's not complicated. So I'm going to use self-criticism as an example, but you can substitute in any of these. So step 1 is you identify the habit. Step 2 is you decide how you're going to respond. And step 3 is you practice and you reset. So let's take critical self-talk. First, you identify the habit. So you notice what you're saying to yourself, like, oh, I sound awful, or I'm going to mess this up. I'm boring. Nobody wants to hear what I have to say. That was rubbish. Why did you get that wrong? Etc. You know the drill. So you identify what you're saying to yourself and when. Ideally, you write it down. It looks pretty bad in black and white, usually. Then you decide how you're going to respond instead. So I want you to decide what kind of self talk is acceptable. And I want you to, if you can, draw a line and treat yourself like you would a colleague. So if someone else was beating themselves up out loud and saying that stuff to themselves, like, oh my God, I'm just such a loser. Why do I always get this wrong? I'm pathetic. You would be like, whoa. One, you'd be kind of alarmed to hear someone talking to themselves like that. And two, you'd be like, no, 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 come on, come on. This is not helping. You'd very clearly be able to see that it was creating for them a state of fear, a state of panic, a state of worry, a state of anxiety, which you know is going to trample on their confidence. So think of it like that and decide what kind of self talk is acceptable and what kind of talk isn't, and draw a line. Step 3 is practice and reset. Now, you are going to slip up with this. That's fine. I used to slip up all the time when I was learning this. I don't so much anymore, but I used to slip up when I was learning. It's fine. We're not going to be perfectionists about it. We're just going to notice that we've done it, take a deep breath, and we're going to reset. And every time you practice doing that, you are interrupting that habituated pattern and you are learning a new way of speaking to yourself in this example. And every time you do that, you're creating the right conditions for your confidence to actually grow instead of be trampled. So, for any of your low confidence cycle habits, that's the steps that you need to take. Identify the habit, decide how you want to deal, decide how you want to respond, and then practice and reset and go again. And if there's one that's really sticky for you and really difficult and you've tried and it doesn't change, then you know you need some extra help. Get some help from me, from someone like me. These habits can be persistent. And if they are, if there's a particular one or a particular couple that feel really persistent, then you might need some extra support to help knock them on the head. So go and get it. All right, that was number 1. Updating, changing those low confidence cycle habits to a different habit, a more high confidence cycle habit. Number 2 is updating your subconscious learnings. So, this is moving on to perhaps the deeper work, the unconscious learnings that we explored in episode 2. So, if you haven't listened to episode 2, go back and listen. But in episode 2, remember I got you to think about what were those things that were under the hood? What were those little nuggets, those things, those learnings that you laid down somewhere, those beliefs that you developed or even inherited that were lying somewhere in your brain and were creating havoc for you when you tried to feel confident public speaking? Remember, every time you get up to that podium or you speak in public, your brain is not starting fresh. It is replaying old experiences and old emotional lessons that it stored, whether that's fear, whether that's panic, whether that's embarrassment. And these beliefs, these unconscious learnings are often the reason that you will feel dreadful, even though you know you're prepared, you know the topic inside out, and everyone is fairly supportive. These are the things that make sense of how hard you're finding this thing. And in order to update these old beliefs, these old patterns, your brain can do this via a process that they call memory reconsolidation. Now, they used to think back in the day that once these beliefs were in there, once these learnings were in there, they were in there. That was it. There was nothing you could do to change them. They now know that that is not the case. They now know that these old beliefs, these old patterns can be deleted, updated, and amended by this process of neuroplasticity, which is called memory reconsolidation. And essentially, it's helping you to delete, change, or update an old response with a new one, an old belief with a new one, an old knowing with a new one. And here is essentially how it works. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples and walk you through this. In theory, if you follow the right steps and you do them correctly, this process will happen. However, in practice, of course, because we are complicated beings, sometimes it is a little more complex than that. And I don't want to make this sound like, oh, yeah, this is just really easy. If you just follow these steps, it's all going to be fine. Yes, your brain is able to do this. Yes, it is possible for memory reconsolidation to happen. And it probably happens every time you have a realization which changes your mind. You just didn't know that that was what was happening. But it can take a bit of patience, it can take a bit of work, and it may take some expert support. But with that caveat, here we go. So let's say one of your beliefs, one of your subconscious learnings from a presentation that you did early on in your career that went terribly wrong was everyone is judging me and judging me negatively. So that belief might have been formed by that past experience. So once we know what it is, once we've identified that embedded belief, everyone's judging me and judging me negatively. Well, one, it's easy to see how you're, shitting it when you stand up there. Because imagine if everyone was actually really judging you negatively. I'd be freaking out. I don't know about you. But once we've identified that belief, the next step is to create what they call a contradictory experience or find some contradictory information. So once we know what that belief is, everyone's judging me and they're judging me negatively, we want to see whether there's actually any evidence that that is happening. Because that's one way of finding contradictory evidence and having a contradictory experience. So I would want you to think about, and there are a million different ways of doing this, but I might want you to think about, do you have evidence already that you spoke or you presented and people didn't judge you? Do you have evidence of that? That contradicts that original belief you had that everybody was judging you and judging you harshly. I might get you to vividly imagine yourself in a presentation that you've already been in. And I might get you to really feel and be there from that moment and talk to me from that moment and slow down. And I might even get you to freeze the frame and look around at the faces of the people and tell me, are they judging you? I want you to look again and see, is that old belief right? Are they judging me? Maybe yes, maybe no. We may even get you to go into real life and, chat to 5 people who were in the audience the last time you did something and say, were you judging me and judging me harshly? And they're like, no, I thought actually you did pretty well. I could see that you're a bit nervous. So, hats off to you. And that may be how you find the contradictory evidence. Now, there are a million ways that you might find this. And there's not one right way of doing it. And of course, it depends what the belief is, depends what the thing is that we're trying to change as to how you might go about finding the evidence. You might have the evidence already. You might be able to vividly visualize it and see something different, or you might be able to test something out in real life and see what happens. But what we know is that for memory reconsolidation to occur, for that old belief that everybody's judging me and judging me harshly to be deleted, we have to have an experience of contradiction, a different experience which challenges that first belief that we had. It's no good just knowing it logically. You might even say to me, well, I know actually that nobody's judging me, but I just feel like they are. So you have to feel like they're not, because it's those feelings rather than those very logical, analytical knowings which appear to trigger memory reconsolidation and deletion or update of that old belief that everybody is judging me. And then in step 3, we're going to integrate that new learning. So that new learning that actually people aren't really judging me. So we're going to bring that old memory and that new experience together. So we're going to bring that belief that everybody's judging me and that new experience where you could see in that visualization that actually they weren't. We're going to bring them together and we're going to get you to really feel it. I might even ask you, what do you know now? And you might say, they're not judging me. And then I might want to check. I might want to do a validation step. So I might want to get you to imagine standing up on another stage and looking out at the audience. And I might say to you, do you think they're judging you? And you might be like, no, I don't think so. Great. Then I know that memory reconsolidation has happened. Or you might go out into your life and the next time you do a presentation and I might say, how did you feel about the audience? And you'd be like, yeah, they were okay. They were engaged and there was a couple playing on their phone, but that was all right. Most people were okay and they sort of smiled at me and it's like, okay, great. Then we know that belief, that old belief that everybody's judging me and judging me harshly has been updated. So here's another example just to walk you through it. Let's say I'm on a panel and I have the belief that if there's one question that somebody asks that I can't answer, my reputation will be ruined. And from that ruined reputation, I will lose my job and I will end up without family and friends and like a bag lady on the street. Now, this sounds extreme, but I can't tell you how many times I've heard this. And I will have had a version of this too. So if there's one question I can't answer, basically it's reputation ruined in the bin. Now imagine how much I'm going to freak out on a panel when there's an entire 200 people that could literally ask me any question. And if I don't know the answer, my whole reputation is shot in the bin. How unbelievably stressful would that be for me? It would be absolutely freaking dreadful. And yet, if that's my belief, and it is for a lot of people, I'm going to get up there shaking like a leaf. So let's say we've identified that belief, we've identified that unconscious, that subconscious learning. Remember, our next step is to look for contradictory experience, contradictory evidence. So, has there ever been a situation where we haven't been able to answer a question and actually our reputation was maintained? Have we been at an event where a panel member couldn't answer a question and you didn't think their reputation was changed one bit? Could you talk to other people who might tell you, oh, yeah, sometimes I can't answer a question. I just tell them, it's a really good question. I'd like to think about it and I will come back to you. And you did, and it was fine. And your reputation was maintained. Remember, not only contradictory knowledge, but we want contradictory experience. So if you've already had an experience where your reputation wasn't ruined by one thing, or you've had the experience of someone else's reputation not being ruined by one thing, we're then ready to try and integrate that new learning. So we're going to bring up that old memory or that old experience or that old belief that if you're up there and there's one question you can't answer, your reputation's in the bin. And we're going to feel that new experience of not knowing it and still knowing that you know your stuff and it being okay and watching the audience's faces or speaking to somebody afterwards, right? There's a million ways that you can do that. So, what then goes in the bin is not your reputation, but your old belief that if there's one thing you can't answer, your reputation will be ruined. So, then we might want to know, okay, well, how did that go? So I might get someone to really visualize being on a panel and not being able to answer a question. And if they can say, yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that right now. I'd like to think about it. Can I get your details, come back to you, whatever? And they feel okay about that, tick, memory reconsolidated. Or if they actually have the experience on the panel and there's something they didn't know and, they try that and it was fine, reputation intact, then they've got that knowing, that experience, which is different from that old belief. And again, imagine that I get up there on my panel knowing that if somebody asks me a question I can't answer, it just means that I can't answer that question. Doesn't mean anything else. I can still maintain a belief in my own experience and in my own knowledge and be proud of myself for getting up there and, being on a panel and giving it a go. Imagine how much less stressful it is when I can get up there knowing that I don't have to know everything. Imagine how much less preparation I have to do. Imagine how many textbooks I don't have to swallow. Imagine how I can rely on my own knowledge and skills and expertise and know that if there are any gaps, that doesn't mean anything bad about me. It just means that sometimes there are some gaps and that's it. So, updating those subconscious learnings, those beliefs, which sometimes you don't know those beliefs even exist, is about giving your brain new data and your body new data and new experiences that are going to overwrite or delete or update those outdated beliefs. Combine this with managing those low confidence cycle habits, and you are honestly on the road. This is how you create some genuine, lasting public speaking confidence. And if you think, oh my God, I hear what you're saying, but this just feels absolutely impossible. I just do not think I could do this on my own. Okay, fine. I've been learning and studying this stuff for years. This might be a great first step listening to this podcast series. But if you think I still need more support, fine, come and talk to me, come and talk to somebody like me. There is support available and some people can help. So here's number 3. We're going to talk now about updating those physical responses. Now, if we've got our low confidence cycle habits right, or change, shall we say, to high confidence cycle habit, and we've done the memory reconsolidation stuff perfectly, we may not need to do this step. However, it is a tool in our belt. It is something in the arsenal, and it really can help. And actually, I've seen it work this way round where we don't do any of the other work and we simply update the physical responses and the whole job lot changes. So, what do you know? Sometimes this kind of change work is harder than you think, and sometimes it's easier than you think. But here is number 3, updating those physical responses. And I'm just going to walk you through how I do this with a client. Ideally, we would have somebody on the podcast and I would do it with them live recorded. And then you would be able to see and hear how this actually works. So if somebody's up for that, then do drop me an email and let me know. But here's how this works. So I ask you, okay, tell me about a time where you did presenting, you did public speaking, and you felt like a certain type of way that was making it hard for you. And you might say, well, I had this event where I was going to do a training session for a client, and I had to get up out of the audience and I had to walk to the podium, and then I had to do this training that I'd prepared. And I felt like I was shaking when I got up. I thought I was going to collapse. And when I walked to the podium, I could feel my heart racing and it was going crazy. And then I got up to the podium and I felt like my brain had gone blank and I was looking at the faces of the people and I just felt, right? So at that point, I know that you have associated into that pattern. I know that at that point, if we were looking at your Apple Watch, your heart rate would actually have increased. I know that you are feeling some of those feelings that you felt in that moment. It's the anxiety, it's the worry. And I watch you. You heard my voice change, right? You know that I had associated into that. And I watch you when you're talking to me tense up, pupils dilate, and I might say, can you feel it right now? Can you feel some of that right now? And they're like, yeah, I can, I can. Like, great. That's the first thing I need in order to update a physical response, to associate you into that habituated pattern, that response. Next step, I would like to get you out of there as swiftly as I can. So I'm going to do something or ask you something. Sometimes I might just ask you to shake your hands out and really, really, really shake them out. Shake out your hands, shake out your arms. You're just kind of shaking off the state. I might want to make you laugh. I might distract you by talking about your jumper or the weather behind you in the window. I don't know, anything. I'm going to do something to just help you just relax a little bit and chill out and just change that state. And then from there, I'm going to want to know, how is it you want to feel instead? So if you got to choose, if we got to wave a magic wand and you could choose any way you wanted, what would it be? And you might tell me, I want to feel confident. So I'd say, great. So let's go to this time in the future where you're there and you're feeling confident. I want to know, how do you know that you're feeling confident? Be in the moment, feel yourself there, see yourself there. How do you know that you're feeling confident? What is it that you're feeling? And they might say, well, I'm noticing that my shoulders are down and my chest is kind of up. And I feel really present in where I am and what's around me. And I'll say, great. And how does it feel to have that chest up and those shoulders down and be really present in what's around you? And they'll say, it feels great, actually. I'm noticing that people are there and they seem to be ready for me to come and talk, and they seem to be interested in what it is that I'm going to be saying. And I'm like, great. What's it like when you notice the people there are interested in what you're going to be saying? And They say, "Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's good to notice that." And I say, "Okay, so as you're noticing that, I want you to stand up in your imagination and I want you to start walking to the podium. And now, as you're walking to the podium and you know that they want you to be there and they're interested in what you have to say and you're feeling confident, what's it like to walk to that podium confidently?" And they're like, "It's great." I'm like, I can see that I'm sort of striding and my arms are sort of swinging and I look like I'm smiling. And I'm like, great. So when you're smiling and your arms are kind of swinging and you're striding, I want you to see yourself go up those steps and get to that podium. And as you're striding and you're smiling and your arms are swinging and you're feeling confident, get to that podium and look out at those people. What do you notice? And they might say, "I notice they're looking. I notice their heads are tilted up. I notice that actually quite a lot of them are smiling, that they're waiting for me." And you say, "Great. What's it like to notice them smiling? And what's it like to notice them waiting for you?" And they say, "Actually, it's really lovely. I've never noticed that before." And I'll say, "Great. And as you're noticing that and you're feeling confident, what's it like to start that presentation?" And they say, "Do you know, I could just start with telling them who I am and saying hello. I just noticed that it's a conversation between me and them." And you're like, "Great. So as you're noticing it's just a conversation and that you can do that, how does that feel for you?" And they're like, "That feels amazing. Like I feel fine. I feel ready to do my material. I can just go through it, etc., etc., etc." So then we go through the whole thing, creating the state that they want, feeling what it feels like when we are in that state, confident, arms swinging, shoulders down, connecting. And then I really want to know, and what are you noticing when you feel like this? And those old beliefs might also be getting pinged out one at a time. "Oh, they're not judging me. They're fine. They're interested." Great. Oh, so they're interested instead of judging you. And then you're having that experience. So we're updating old beliefs as well as physical responses here, killing two birds with one stone. And the more we practice that feeling state in those moments, the better it happens in real life. I was a little unsure about this the first time I learned it. I was like, surely you can't just imagine it and then it happen in real life. And then it kept working. And I was like, holy moly, this does actually work. And clients would come back and they'd say, you won't believe this, but I stood up and it was fine. Didn't even feel terrible. And you're like, wow, amazing. Now, does this work perfectly every single time, first time? No, it doesn't. But I have seen it work so many times now to either start to eradicate or just knock down the level of anxiety that people feel. So I might ask somebody at the beginning, let's say the thing that they identify is panic. And I might say to them, "What's the level of that out of 10? Where are you at when you stand up at that podium?" And they're like, "I'm at a 9." You're like, "Wow, okay, so 10's probably like passing out." But they actually feel like they're at a 9. So the next time after we've done that work, they might say, "Do you know, I was at a 6." It's like, great. All right, so let's go in again. Let's reinforce it. Let's see what else we can reconsolidate or recondition. And the next time they'll say, "I was at a 5." Amazing. So let's see if we can knock that down further. Let's get you to a 3. And sometimes people are like, "Yeah, I'm all right with 3. 3's just a bit of nerves and I can cope with that." Amazing. So that is a little bit about how you update those physical responses. And as you may have heard, at the same time I'm doing that process to try and support you in updating those physical responses, you also might be updating some of those old beliefs because you're looking at things from a different feeling state, from a different angle. And you can see things and notice things that you just could not notice when you were in that state before. So that's the third piece of the puzzle, I think, reconditioning those physical responses. So in this mini series, we have covered changing those low confidence cycle habits to high confidence cycle habits, updating or identifying, I should say, and updating those subconscious learnings, those implicit beliefs, those things you're thinking and believing, which are creating a lot of fear and a lot of stress for you. And then we've looked at identifying and reconditioning those physical responses. Now, none of this is a silver bullet. It takes a bit of attention and a bit of work. But I'm guessing that if you are currently freaking out about public speaking, that is taking quite a bit of attention and quite a bit of work, and potentially is exhausting you and leaving you in a state where you may not be able to get on with other things. So it's taking your mental time, your mental energy, bandwidth, and it's possibly making you less productive. So some time spent doing this work, I think, will be time well spent career-wise. And when you work on all three of these things, the high confidence cycle habits, the subconscious learnings, the beliefs, and the physical responses, you're not just working on doing a breathing exercises or managing your nerves. You're actually changing the way your mind and your body experience and think and feel about public speaking. And that's where real lasting confidence is built, from the inside out. So many people want to know, how do I get out there and fake it better? Well, I mean, if that's all you've got, good luck to you. But what if you don't have to keep faking it? What if you could do this work and actually you can stand up there and be real about it? Hallelujah. If you have found this mini series helpful, please do share it with a friend, with a colleague, somebody at your work that might need it too, because we need good people on those microphones. We cannot just leave it to the people who seem to have endless bags of confidence to be the ones who are visible, to be the ones who speak. We need your voice too. And we need people like you to be able to get up there and say the things that need to be said. And if you want to do this work with me, you can find the links in the show notes. So book a call, come and chat to me. I'll tell you whether or not I think I can help. And I will see you in next week's episode. Bye.
Confidence, confidence, confident. I can be confident. Confidence, confidence, confident.